Hello, thank you for joining us to a series of talks, A New Life with the Rav Laitman. Hello, Rav Laitman. Hello, everyone. Hello, Nitza Mazos. Hello. So we are talking about health, and in our talk today, we would like to speak about pregnancy and birth. We began this in our previous talk, and we would like to continue in this process. In this series of talks, A New Life on health, we're trying to learn from the Rav Laitman how we can be healthier, but a whole health in all kinds, on all levels in our bodies, but also in our perceptions of ourselves and of life itself. We each time touch upon different topics in this. In the health of people, and we try to receive from the Rav Laitman lots of insights about this, and to build from that a new life, a new approach to life. So, Nitsa, this is our second talk about pregnancy and birth. What do we want to focus on right now? So first of all, in the last talk, you gave us a very wide perspective, a very wide picture, and we could feel such a huge potential there is. It's as if we're missing, because we only look at things from a very basic curiosity without understanding what nature really wants to teach us through this amazing process that is called pregnancy and birth and the creation of life, of a new life in general. So now we would really like if you could take us by the hand through this process to gradually learn and understand this process. So let's start with the first stage. The first thing that awakens within us is the desire to become a parent, a mother, a father. What is the source of this desire in nature, and why does it exist? It exists because we need to reach the purpose of creation. There's a plan in nature, and we need to maintain it, whether we want to or not. We need to fulfill it. There's a process we need to go through, and it doesn't depend on us. We only see that it takes place, better or worse, with our consent or without our consent, with the support from our part or not, but still we are compelled to do it, and we begin to see also with all the processes that we go through over history, in our relationships, and on all levels, that here there is gradual development in the inanimate, vegetative, and animal levels, in relationships between people, in this special evolution that happens with us also in human society. And we're not able to change anything here, if even through all kinds of processes like dictatorship, all kinds of revolutions, uprisings according to somebody's craze. If we want to change something, then afterwards everything goes back to the way it used to be, and we continue in the same line, just like what happened with Russia, for example, and with the kibbutzes in Israel, and in general with each and everything. There's a process where you see different places where people break out of this process, but they also happen in order to teach us that really we're not really changing anything here, but our nature needs to develop in this way and to bring us to some goal or purpose, to a certain state. Why? Because, once again, from this process that the animal body is going through, we can learn more or less what needs to happen with the human body in us. Just like we talked about in the previous talk, in the first talk, that we can learn from this process that we're going through inside the womb, processes that we need to go through in human society. And if we don't go through that in human society, then we have a problem. Because all we do is create troubles for ourselves instead of putting ourselves in good and updated, corrected life. According to your question, I understand that you want to talk about the preparation for pregnancy. Yeah, that's right, the preparatory stage. Okay, so we also see here that we are not properly aimed or directed at this preparation, because with animals, they have a simple preparation. They grow, their hormonal instinct rise, and they have to seek and find something. They have a special process of finding one another and different seasons and so on, and everything continues as usual according to the commands of nature. And with us, because we have the image of the human, of man that grows in us, that is not run instinctively but by nature, but we need to participate in its creation. In its creation, meaning that we receive from nature all kinds of forces, but we need to organize them in the correct connection between them. We need to participate in this organization. We need to learn from nature, from the animal level, and to transfer that to the human level. And that's what we're not doing. We're not copying things from the animal level to the human level. And by that, we already see that we find ourselves in great damages. Why? We don't want to get married. We don't want to bring children. So then, probably, if we behaved correctly with one another, we would want to get married, because we would see in that the creation of life and a source of pleasure and development and for the future. And also with the birth of children and the new generation, we see that we're developing something from which we have a state that is similar, alike to the Creator, to the entire nature. And we don't feel that because it comes from the lack of correction of the human degree, the human level, the speaking level. So then it won't help us here to do any small courses about something or encourage it through, just like the government wants to do, to encourage it through decreasing the taxes or enabling couples to buy apartments for cheaper prices or helping single mothers and so on. What we need is to change our approach to life entirely. And for our family life and life in society and this creation of the new generation, it needs to be a creation where we need to enjoy doing it, to enjoy building it, stabilizing it correctly, society and the family and our offspring. It's to work as the Creator, as the upper force. If we relate to it correctly, we'll see a challenge in it, a nice, beautiful challenge. And for now, I'm afraid, unfortunately, we're still not corrected. Our entire approach is wrong. And so there's no wonder that more and more we see disruption in our relationships and accidents with birth and problems getting pregnant, problems with the desire of men to do so, and more and more. It all belongs to one to the other. We also see there's a general crisis in the economy and finances. There it also does not support it because people cannot build a family, to build a house and so on. There's a lack of income and workplaces and so on. Also, this malfunction, this disruption is also in schools and kindergartens, and we don't want to. We keep the children from leaving the home because we want him to be in an environment that's as safe and good as possible, and the school isn't such a good environment anymore, and even kindergarten. I know a great part of the environment that makes an enormous effort only to keep a child from going to such a hostile environment as the school these days, etc. So we see that our ego, with our wrong approach to life, where we don't copy or take an example from the animal level to the human level, developing the good, balanced, harmonious relationships between us and connection, that unity that is demanded from human society, by not building nature around us on the human level. Nature is as the mother, And on the still the inanimate, vegetative, and animal levels, it keeps our development safe. But on the human level, we need to build our development as a mother, as nature. But we see that if we don't work on this mutuality, this connection, this unity between us, if we don't connect to each other properly, nature operates on us with a very destructive force. And if we don't balance these forces, the force of bestowal and the force of reception, then we see the incorrect combination between them, just like the flood, the waters of the flood. So in order to build, we need to build this human level with the forces of nature within us and the interactions between us. We need to build this correct covering around us to envelope us, which is the only solution. Also to prepare young people to be a couple and how to treat the issue of pregnancy and how to raise children. And today people don't want it. Even though people are living together, they think, what do we need children for? We'll just take care of each other. We'll make an agreement and live for ourselves. Why should we care for anyone? Look at what's happening to the children afterwards. They don't want to see the parents. You invest 20 years in them and then they leave home. He hardly says goodbye, maybe calls once in a while. I need something or other. Otherwise, he doesn't call because he was taught to be such an egoist. So what can you demand from them? And therefore, there is one medicine, one cure here, only one solution. And I see that you have a lot of questions. I'm afraid that it will be the same answer to all the questions. Let's proceed. Okay, so first of all, let's conclude this part in a few words. Naturally, there was an awakening of a desire to give birth. This was natural. And you describe a phenomenon, which was supposed to be my next question. You said that how this phenomenon recently has been replaced with people not wanting children so much. Because the human level in us is not balanced. We're not building it just like our previous nature of the inanimate, vegetative, and animal levels. And therefore, we find ourselves broken, in a bad state, in crisis on this level. And so we don't want a family or birth or anything. And so humanity gradually, slowly, the more it grows on the human level, without organizing this level above the inanimate, vegetative, and animal levels, then this degree will discover more and more distortions in its life, as opposed to the harmony and order in nature around us, the integral life around us. Okay, so the next thing that we want to develop is the problems with fertility that you mentioned, because we see in actuality that statistically there are more problems with fertility. It's harder. Even if it's already awakened, this desire to give birth, then we see that there are a lot of problems with fertility. We have very nice examples from the Bible. All of our mothers had a problem with their fertility. And as we see, this all comes from the source of it is from corrections that they lacked, special corrections in their connection, in the way they related to others. It's human corrections. This is what the Torah speaks of. And once they attained the human corrections, then they became pregnant, and there was a birth, and everything was okay. Here we need to take an example also for ourselves, that the more we become closer to the state in which we need to correct this human degree more and more, the speaking level, and we don't do these corrections, these problems they will grow. And it will be hard for us to give birth, and everything will have to be through operations and 1,001 medications and problems, and in short, that's how it will be. So nature is trying to tell us in a way that there's something wrong with you. Of course, we can see it. I'm not even saying that I'm not looking at the Bible as a kind of romance story. a novel, of course it's a story. It's a result of the lack of correction in humans on the human level, because animals don't have it at all, only on the human level, and it's a sign that we need to correct the human within us. So this phenomenon of fertility problems, like you said, it existed all throughout history, but what is different today than what happened so long ago? Then it was in a special way for very special people, because they were as special examples for us. And today, because the entire humanity needs to reach corrections on the human level, and not just then when there were just a few people like that on earth that the Bible tells us of. But today, when all of humanity is nearing the general correction, then we see that this problem is a general problem, and it has no solution. Well, we have medicine as usual. Why would we need to invest billions of dollars in it and efforts and sufferings to through this extra suffering on top of suffering to make a kind of correction a little bit, but even it's not a correction actually. It's only a small compensation. It's a distortion on top of a distortion that it comes out a little more straight. So naturally, people look at fertility problems as a personal thing. They think that they themselves have a fertility problem. Does that mean that they themselves don't know how to connect, or is it influenced by everyone? Good. This is a very good question. It's a general thing. It doesn't depend on a person. It's a general problem. People usually ask, what can I do to get pregnant? So we're telling her, you should pray, you should give some charity, maybe go in and volunteer at hospitals or something. The people look for mercy from above, from the sky. The woman feels that this is something that is in the hands of the Creator. And it's truly that way. Young couples are very realistic people. And suddenly, when in this whole issue of birth, they feel like it doesn't depend on them, as if there's an internal spiritual degree in which something is happening. And then from there, the cells begin to connect and to multiply. Therefore, we need to understand that all of the decisions and beginnings of new life, they start at very, very high degrees of nature, of the general nature, and actually only the relationships between us on the levels of the hatred or love can influence it. The highest feelings that we have, one is from the will to receive, which is hatred, and the other from the will to bestow, which is love. Only they can help us to correct things here, this malfunction. What's the connection? You said that the beginning of life, this start, is something that happens on the highest levels of nature, and our ability to influence on them, the connection between them, because it's a connection between the giving force and the receiving force, the male and female. Wait, slowly, this is interesting. I'll tell you what I understood and you'll explain to me. What happens here at the beginning of a pregnancy? Two cells connect, male and female, and each one has a different nature. Different nature, plus and minus, that connect together, bond. This connection actually is supernatural. It's supernatural. Even though we see that it's an act from which something new is born, a third thing that happens out of two. How can I influence these two cells? I'm not talking about the cells, I'm talking about the forces, because before the cells you have forces that bring them closer and force them to enter one another. The connection between them. These forces, male and female, is the force of bestowal and the force of reception. The force of bestowal is the male and the force of reception is the female. And they need to connect between them in the correct way, and by that, life will begin. The third body. I influence them if I organize the environment, if I organize these forces in the universe and human society in the right way, so that the forces of bestowal and the forces of reception will connect harmoniously between themselves. Where, Oren is asking? In human society. But the human society is not in my hands. I'm just one person. I'm just one man. Okay, so if you're just one person, you will suffer. I don't understand. One person can't influence the system? No. So 7 billion people need to do something in order for them to change something? That's right, and until then there will be mishaps. But a moment ago somebody became pregnant and somebody else didn't, so the system is constantly operating. The system is operating, but its problems are increasing more and more. Right? And this will continue until we begin to correct it. What do we need to correct? The relationships between us. Because that is the highest level in the connection between the forces of reception and bestowal. And these forces on the human level influence the connection between the forces of bestowal and reception on the level of the cells of the animal body. This is called that the human corrects the entire world beneath him, of the inanimate, vegetative, and animal levels that are drawn after the human level. That is the law. So let's say I improve my relationships, my attitude towards you from hatred to love. Well, one person might not help. So who will help? Everyone. But what do you mean, everyone? Maybe we shouldn't even have this talk. That's right. So either there is a system that is influenced by pulses, then it should be influenced by every pulse. If I don't have a pulse and she doesn't have a pulse and nobody has a pulse and it's not influenced by anyone. But that's not what you're saying. You're saying it is influenced. Sir, here we need to add that the nature we are in is integral. I cannot, with my own impulse, individually, personally, influence it and receive a reply from it, a response. I have to influence the entire mechanism, and to the extent that this mechanism begins to improve for the better, I will also improve for the better. But it's not that I influence and receive in return. This is the egoistic linear society that we had until now, until this crisis. Now we've entered this connection between us that is a network of connections, and therefore I can't give a cure to a woman who wants to get pregnant, and I can't tell her go and donate this much money and help this many people, and by that you will buy for yourself some ability to perceive and to get pregnant. No, I can't. No, of course, I'm not talking about this. I'm talking... You're saying that if I improve myself with my attitude towards others, from hatred to love, then the extent that I made to improve myself, what do you mean? You improve yourself towards what? Towards people, towards the general society, with all the places where you are. Yeah, in general, towards the billions, wherever I am, my connection to others outside me. If I improve myself to a certain extent, by that I've nourished this network that I understood exists like an internet. Right, and then virally it spreads. Right, but then I put my pulses in there, so it's not a two-way street. It's not that if I put in a shekel, I receive 100, and if I have a problem with my fertility and I improved my relations, and tomorrow my wife will get pregnant. But all in all, I did nourish the system and caused it some balance, connection between the giving and bestowing force. That's true. It's like there's a general bank, and I can put a coin in this general bank. Yes. So then if the general bank gained it, I didn't specifically necessarily gain. That's right. So only if enough people nourish the system with such positive pulses, that all in all the balance of the ability to connect or inability to connect between the giving and bestowing force that will determine the state of fertility or non-fertility will improve systematically. That's right. Okay, from now on, where do we go? So now, let's finish the state of fertility and continue to the next phase, which let's say is already a stage in which we have a pregnancy. The process has begun. Until then, we will need to invest in medicine and all kinds of research, a lot. And still, by that, we will not correct and be able to correct the malfunction that has already happened. So you're saying with all the technologies that are developing, no, we won't make it in time. With all the abilities and all the money that we have, if we only invested there, the malfunctions will be greater than what we'll manage to compensate for. The tipping point, where it is towards which direction, we'll talk about that one day. So let's say that there are couples that manage to get pregnant and they're at this initial stage, and it's a stage where we would really like to receive this preparation. A woman has already become pregnant, and what kind of preparation does she need to go through in order to understand this process? I'd start much before that. First of all, from the moment they themselves are born, this man and woman, and gone through treatment in kindergarten and school. What were they taught? What family were they educated in themselves? What were they educated for? How were they brought to a state where they connect between them? What are they connecting for? What are they entering this connection, this family for? And the birth of children. It all needs to be a long time ago, not from now. That now that she's pregnant, we put her through this course in the Ministry of Health. Right, because now she has the motivation to learn. But we can't turn the wheel behind. We need to go forward. We will start in kindergartens, but if she got pregnant now, we won't take her back to kindergarten. She's not there anymore. She's now pregnant. And it's customary that to prepare yourself for the birth, to go through a course. So my question is to you, as an expert of the integral world, the perception of the integral world, from your angle of life, what would we want to emphasize for a woman or a couple that is now beginning this process of pregnancy? Special focuses that you would like to add to everything we already know how to teach them. I think it is very late, and I'll tell you why. A woman who gets pregnant thinks only about what's in her womb. All of her focus and efforts are only upon that. All of her life is in there. She herself doesn't exist. She only exists together with that piece of flesh that is now growing there. She has nothing else, no ability in her body to think about anything or somebody at all, about anything. She's doing a big favor, great efforts to somehow function externally. It's in a very external way. She puts on some face on herself, normal face, and does things, but actually she's entirely inside herself. This is what nature is compelling her to do. Therefore, to now begin to explain to her about her connection with the global world, well, maybe we don't need to teach her that. Teach her her connection with her embryo, and through that to give her some insights that she'll want. Because if the global world doesn't interest her, we shouldn't, because she won't listen to you. But that's a pity. Well, okay, but that's her desire now. No, but naturally, we are operated on the animal level. And on the animal level, she thinks only of her fetus inside her belly, and nothing else but that. But on the human level, she has to think about this fetus, which already belongs to other embryos, that together with them, all of the embryos are in the general womb, which is the environment. Well, wait, gradually. She'll be happy to think about it, so lead her gradually. She has the interest to educate this embryo. She'll want to know all of these stages. Now she's beginning the pregnancy. She's very concerned about it. They are a couple. This couple needs to understand that the embryo that is now inside them depends not only upon them, on the mother and on and her partner, but on the entire world. It receives nourishment from the entire world. It belongs to the integral system, and it doesn't matter that it's inside the mother. That influence, he's also influenced by the system around her. They can't disconnect him. Just because he's in the mother doesn't mean that this is his ark and he's not connected to anything else. He's influenced her and him. What's influencing them? Humanity in its entirety. How? Through the network where we're all connected. But he's not a living creature yet. Why not? Of course he's alive already. If his own cell has developed out of the two different cells of the mother and father, this already means that he's alive. It means that she's pregnant. We don't check according to weeks. We talk about the 3 days of reception of the sperm, right, left, and middle. If there is already a middle line, if there is already this mutual thing between them, this is called the 3rd day. And these are not exactly days. They are such special conditions. And that's it. Then the embryo begins to be, and this is the 3 days of the absorption of the perception or reception of the sperm. And then there's the 40 days of the creation of the embryo, where it's already called an embryo. And then he receives an image, a form, a specific image, in which within these beginning initial 40 days, what happens? He receives his entire foundation. Forces of bestowal, of reception. They stabilize him as a person, as a human. Forces stabilize him. And what's inside this sperm? He receives from the mother, all in all, just the nourishment, food, which he develops out of the forces, the common mutual forces between the mother and father that enter this connection between them. And now this connection between them, between the father and mother, and he was created on the 3rd day. He's the 3rd part of the reception of the sperm. This common force between them, it is the one that develops throughout these 40 days. Who develops this force? And this force stabilizes the form of the flesh as well. The force that develops is the human degree, the human level, man, which develops through the human. Dam is blood, the blood of the mother. And over these 40 days, this force is manifested, is actualized. Within 40 days, it's got everything it needs that will later develop inside it. And out of this collision between two forces, female and male, it's a collision between them, where one enters the other. Also, this collision between the womb, where the uterus receives the embryo, and also between the embryo and the mother's body, because there's also a resistance between two forces. We have to understand these are forces that are operating here, not just flesh. Just because we see these things afterwards with some chemical actions, that's clear. But first of all, inside, forces are working. And in general, the creation of life is happening out of this force. We don't know what is happening inside the sperm, inside of this drop. These are things that are more and more hidden inside. It's like we go into the molecules and then inside the atom, and what do we see inside the atom? A force. We don't even see particles. It's all just, it evaporates, it disappears. It's only forces. just because we perceive these forces when they operate on us through our perceptions, our senses, as some sort of matter, otherwise we wouldn't be able to perceive it, that's something else. But at its foundation, the foundation of each action, everything that happens, there are forces. And we mustn't relate to these things as if they are in such a way that is not serious. Let's talk about the foundation of life. Therefore, these two forces, when they operate, and a man and woman in our world, and in this place in the woman's body where the embryo sticks to the side of the uterus and the womb itself and the woman's body, it's all about the creation of opposing forces and how they can connect above the resistance between them. This resistance later only takes place as the resistance that happens during the birth in order to get the baby out of the womb. So we need to understand this, all of these forces, these individual forces between the man and woman, and inside the woman, they all are connected also to the network of forces, the general network. Which network? The network that connects all of human beings, that connects the forces of the uterus to the general network on the level of Adam, of the human level. And the baby, the embryo feeds on this network through the mother when he's inside the mother. What do you mean through the mother? Through the mother, meaning that she is the adapter between him and the external wide world, but in the sense of the forces outside of them. And it's not just the mother here who treats the baby positively or negatively. The entire world influences him. The entire world. So explain to me, please, how come today they are born so smart that after just a few months they already perceive everything around them? Where is that coming from? What does he see at home? He sees nothing special. But look at the perception that he has from the inside. Where does it come from? It's from that network he's connected to, the network of forces. Also, he finds himself to be much smarter, more subtle, more crafty, or the opposite from his parents. He shows himself that way to be. So children they are fed from this general network, of course. We live in a world of forces and not in a world of matter. Matter is just the external exhibition. If you go into matter, you see a force. Okay, so the first insight that you've given to this couple is that, first of all, we'll begin from the end. You said, first of all, take into consideration that the entire world influences your fetus. Don't think that it's just you and her and what happens in your living room or the kitchen between you two. All the world influences your fetus. That's the first insight. I don't know how to talk to them, whether we should talk to them about it or not. So tell me. I'm just saying if we want to solve our problems, we have no choice but to treat the integral world. But I don't know about the integral world. I have a couple here that's become pregnant. Now I have a possibility when they come to me. I remember when we were pregnant, most people go through a course preparing them for birth with breathings, and they don't even know what they teach. Whoever teaches that, good luck to them. We bless them and hope that he continues to work at that. Right. Okay, so now we have an opportunity to give them an addition of knowledge, of knowing, of things that they can do to improve their pregnancy. We can say, let's not give them anything. That's also okay. No. So what do we give them? What we just talked about. Okay, so the first insight is for them to know that the safety of their future baby and the safety of the world is one and the same. I didn't understand. First, you said that the entire world influences this fetus. Now you said that the safety of the baby and the world is the same. Then, until they sign these peace agreements, I won't. 9 months, I have to give this baby. I have to give birth to him. We won't have time to do that. So the first thing you said, I understood that the entire world influences my baby. But now you expanded it. You're saying it's not just me and him, it's everyone. Now, what do I do with this insight? All right, so we'll talk about it differently. We live in the force field, just like the magnetic field, the electrostatic field, all kinds of forces, all kinds of fields. And we also find ourselves in a field of desires and thoughts, the general field of all of humanity. And all in all, we all create out of ourselves. We make these two forces. Which two? Desire and thoughts. Every man. Yes, every person. So all in all, it creates this general field, right? That's right. And this general field must be integral and balanced. It needs to operate in mutuality so that each one will think about the other and everybody will think about everybody else. This is called love thy friend as thyself. This state is the ideal state, and it exists within nature. It exists within nature as a basis. And it's revealed towards us, this basis, gradually. And we, towards this foundation, feel our life. I didn't understand. We, by this network, integral nature revealing itself gradually, we feel ourselves towards this network that's being revealed. We feel who we are. We feel worse, that we feel that we are worse, that we are more harmed, more ill, and so on and so on. The parents need to know that this integral web or network of humanity that is still broken, it influences them and it influences the fetus. It doesn't matter that it's inside his mother. It doesn't matter where he is. And therefore, they need also, in their concern for the fetus, to take into consideration their dependency on that general system. And to the extent that they care for him, they also need to care for this network receiving more balance, gaining more balance. How? Through their thoughts, through the way they relate to it, through maybe their participation in those talks that we are now talking about. Let's try and exercise it. To illustrate, let's give an exercise that is practical. So we'll give a few explanations about man, about the future, about history, about our evolution, about free choice, and together with that, some workshops. So let's do something, a specific workshop that is fit for a couple that has now become pregnant, and we want to take this insight after they've heard it with their minds. I want them to grasp it to a certain extent with their feelings, thoughts. Lead us through it. So first of all, they need to know that if they continue and advance with our general knowledge that we're teaching, then that helps the fetus because we're learning about the general system, not something unnatural, artificial, that man invented out of his own brain. We're learning about the general system of nature, and therefore when they study about it, they become more balanced. They become more calm and balanced within themselves. In accordance to that, they heal all of their systems, and of course that influences the fetus. And then we'll begin as usual, just like we usually give our series of talks to the public, the evolution of the ego through the ego, and how we've reached this integral society, what what our forces of good or evil depend on, how we can balance these two forces of good and evil, how can we reach harmony between them, where is our free choice, it's in building the correct environment, how does that influence each and every one of us and all of us together, what is the purpose of creation, which we also bring proof from scientists for. It's the same than the regular series that we use in our Voot course. That's clear. Also, for me, I try to enter this feeling of a pregnant woman. And as a pregnant woman, the moment that you went back to history, that was far from me. The moment you talked about my fetus, then my ears opened up and I was 100% in attention. The evolution starts with the beginning of my pregnancy. No matter. This is a general education. Yeah, but there's nothing. Talk about the baby, only about the baby. All the other things, they won't perceive them. Talk about the baby. Whatever is not connected to the babies, they won't hear you. That's the status. I understand. I was talking about a couple that arrives. I'm talking about the couple. If it doesn't have anything to do with the baby, she'll take her husband home. So you said about the fetus that if you expand your understanding, your perception of the nature, this will influence the fetus. If you balance the general field, your fetus will be better off. This far is interesting. Let's help them exercise this through the fetus. The peace, the well-being of the fetus. Exercising the well-being of the fetus. We talked about it in our previous talk, that just like the fetus is, the womb is towards the fetus, this is how we need to build human society towards the couple. So what do they need to do? Think about it. Not just think about it. Let's imagine that Nitsa and I are this couple. Lead us through this exercise, even in our thoughts. We are in the workshop. So first of all, you listen to all of these things in theory. Yeah, we heard them so far. You heard them? Okay, good. So if it's understood, then we put them through a workshop. Here, we sat down. Okay, so now you begin to talk. And take all of this material that you learned before, that you heard, and now we are giving you questions according to that material. Please give us some questions. Okay, under which forces of development does your fetus find itself? What influences it towards good development? What can, God forbid, cause it unwanted development? If we expand the mechanism that influences the fetus to wider scales, dimensions, where it's not just the mother's womb, but the family, then in what way do you need to be related and connected in order to cause, through the forces of relationship between you, the correct attitudes towards the fetus, so that he'll feel that the womb of the mother also receives a good influence from the relationships between you, that this baby is wanted, that you love him very much even now, that you're talking about him, that you are waiting for him, and so on and so forth. This is as usual. In these courses, they give this in a lot nicer way than I'm doing now, but they talk about them we are talking about them stabilizing forces of influence on this fetus. Now, this also includes music and all kinds of things that they teach the women, and there's enough of that. Okay, later, onwards. Talk to us, and then we'll understand you better. So all in all, this couple, it is in a wider environment than this couple and is influenced by this environment. What is it? It's the close environment of the friends and relatives and workplace and so on. Also, how can we stabilize this environment to influence in a nicer way influence the couple, and from the couple it will influence the womb, and from the womb it will influence the fetus. How can we organize this force field so that all these forces will be in one direction, in the good, that does good direction, towards this fetus, towards this creature? And so we here need to stabilize what nature did not. God forgot to organize this mechanism for us properly. He left it for us to do. It's up to us, so we need to do it. So what do we need to do? We need to build this good environment in a wider circle, also at work and with our relatives and with everyone. Now, and we'll go even further to the states, to the world. How will I do it? It doesn't matter. You think about it because your thoughts is a force. It's unlimited. You're saying I don't need to do anything. It's just with my thoughts. Of course, you don't need to run all around the world to organize these workshops. So what do I need to do? What do I need to do? Not what I don't need to do. You need to think about how good that is. What's good? If the world was all organized just like a womb around your future baby. Not more than that. It's a simple thing. We need to imagine it from what's happening inside your wife. Try to imagine how this happens all over the world and how we are all in this great, nice womb, good womb that we've built and stabilized. We've formed. I should illustrate this in my imagination. This is what the work I need to do. Yes, and constantly hold this image. What do you mean constantly? That you want this to happen. I need to go back to this image, to this picture. Yes, that you want this, that the entire world will be united, connected, nicely, mutually, and that everyone will cause only security, goodness, warmth, mutuality to each other, which is called, in general, arvut, mutual guarantee. This is an exercise, a practical exercise. Yes, for the sake of your fetus. Yes. You pat your wife like this and think about the world. This is a great correction, I'm telling you. What should I think about him? That he'll feel good in the good world, that this is what you want for him. Because all in all, he's only in this temporary apartment in there. He's going to come out to the world. And what kind of world is he going to come out to? Is he going to thank you for giving birth to him? In our world today, no. Okay, that's it. So you need to have concern about this, and this concern is already an influence. You already agree to it. I wish that all the people in the world will listen to such talks or a few such talks before they give birth. Not just women, but men too. Is there also an importance to the stage in the pregnancy? You talked about the first 40 days, which is the work of the forces. Is it meaningful? Yes, it's desirable that we should do it from the most initial stages. And then throughout the entire 9 months. Why not? So for now, I only have one exercise. I will describe it, and then you'll tell me if I need to be satisfied with it or do you want another exercise. No, I'll give you a lot of exercises because I now want, during the pregnancy, for you, when you're in my hands, afterwards you'll run away. So I want to give you all of this process onwards as well, because now you're willing to hear also about the time of breastfeeding, of nursing, and afterwards about childhood and schooling, everything. I can now give you this entire approach to the entire life. And this is for each and every one. It's not hard for you to perceive this. It's just the same idea, except it only expands, becomes more powerful. But the fact that you perceive it, that you grasp it, is what I need. For now, you're changing. You're in these workshops, you're in these activities, internal actions. That's what I need to do. I am turning this process of pregnancy, of this piece of flesh, to the process of your spiritual birth. Except I'm not telling you about it. So don't tell me. So for now, you've given me just one exercise. I have just one exercise that I need to go through with my wife every evening. I need to sit next to her, to pat her belly and think. No, I didn't say pat her belly. I just threw that. Okay, so not pat her belly, but to sit with her and think together. Even if at work I have such thoughts about how if I want for my baby, this fetus that is growing in my wife's belly, if I wanted to have well-being, I need to illustrate this good world to which he will be born, what kind of relationships will be there, how people will take care of each other? How will they relate to each other? Actually, if I understood correctly, tell me if I did. I have to disconnect from the image of the world as I know it, and I try to draw, to imagine the best picture of the world that I want to see. Right? I try to illustrate this ideal of love thy friend as thyself as the code of life in the world I want my baby to be born into. Of course, because that's the best situation for the baby. Great. So that's the first exercise. This is the only thing I need to do, or do you want to give me another exercise? This is the foundation of it. Afterwards, we need to check, can we be in that all the time? Keep that all the time. So you will come to me and tell me, we can think about our baby all the time. We waited for him a few years, and now finally we're waiting for him to be born, for everything to be okay, for nothing to go wrong. In a month, we'll need to go through this test and that, and in 2 months, that test. But what you're talking now about the world, no, we're thinking about it. You know how they answer you. No, I'm telling you, if you want for everything to go well, you have to think about the world. And even more than you think about the fetus. Your friends are first, as it's written. Oh, this is a problem. It's even a problem that you know, even though you know it's for the good of your fetus, but it's two opposite directions. How can I think about only for his sake, for their sake, and for that to be for the sake of my fetus? How can I? Here there begins to be a development against the evil inclination where I have to tie both of these directions together as one. How is it possible? It's very simple. I need to reach a state in which all of them are my embryos. They're all in my womb. I am as the creator, as the mother. I am as the womb, and they are all within me. What? This is something I won't complete in 9 months. So what is exercise number 2? That's exercise number 2. What is it? I didn't understand. Well, what I told you. What do I need to exercise? I understood. You need to talk about it inside the circle. Is that possible? Will that be possible? Is it not possible? Define the exercise. I don't know if it will be in the circle. Let's say I'm with my wife. Give us homework. Number 2. Exercise number 2. The world needs to be so corrected in mutual love so that there will be no difference between a person and his friend. Just like now, there is no difference between us and our baby. We need to feel this way, to relate in this way to everybody in the world. Is that possible? I didn't quite understand the question for discussion. This is a discussion between us, right? Yes, the discussion is, we need to discuss what? How far we are from thinking about the world as we think about our fetus. That's clear. Won't that bring us down? Maybe there's a third exercise. This is number 2. Okay, let's do the third exercise immediately. Which is what? It's, even though this is an unrealistic thing, but just like the miracle that happens to us with this whole process of birth, this is how this miracle will happen to us with the process of birth on the human level, where when my baby is born, and I will receive a birth certificate, and together with that, I'll receive a birth certificate for my spiritual birth. What's that? That I'll be born. For now, I've gone through this course over 9 months, at the end of which I'm also born. Born in what? In what sense? In the sense that I find that within me, a force of bestowal is born, a good approach towards others. Our time is up once again. Okay. All right. Thank you, Rav Laitman. Thank you, Nitsa. And thank you also for being with us. Even if you're not pregnant yet, you have these 3 exercises to do. Go over this talk once again and begin to exercise it, to practice it. Until then, let's have an easy birth. All the best and goodbye.